Okay. All right, I think we're live. Yeah, hey everyone, this is the tooling meeting for, what is the date? January 21st. It's just a couple of us here today, so probably keep it kind of short. Let's see. Oh, actually, so first thing on the agenda here actually is these test failures in the rmdir recursive test suite. I think actually Ben put a PR for this to fix it. So thank you, Ben. I think I'm the one that made those mistakes. I didn't realize you had to await certain expects. So yeah, that's sorted out. What else do we have here? Recursive readdir, we had a bunch of people on the call last time, including Ethan Arwood from Microsoft. Or I think he's at Vercel now. Everyone, you just probably just assume everyone works at Vercel now.
Not everyone.
Anyways, it looks like he put up a PR to implement the recursive readdir functionality in Node Core. So that's good. There's some progress there. I don't think I've had a chance to look at it yet. I don't know if anyone has any comments on that.
No, I haven't looked at that. Yeah.
And then alert end users to features that were added to Node Core. That was one that was been on my list for a while, but I haven't done anything with that. Recursive copy we have on here. I don't actually know. Let's see what's on the issue for this one. It's partly because this is done. It's still flagged experimental. I know Ben wants to get it unflagged, but since he's not here, I don't really know what the status of that is. So yeah, unless anyone wants to talk about that, we can move on to everyone's favorite topic of discussion, argument parsing.
It'll land one day and we won't have to talk about this.
What's that?
It'll land one day and we won't have to talk about it anymore, I swear.
It's true, yeah. I mean, I don't mind talking about it, but I would rather, just ship it. I saw that Ben, oh, sorry, go ahead, Darcy.
No, go.
Okay, I was just gonna say, I saw that Ben put up a PR, I think like last week, to use the primordials in that library.
Yeah, I think they were there originally and then Joe removed it or something. That's what he said.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like.
Yeah.
He wasn't 100% sure why they were there. So now they're back. So yeah, I mean, that's good. Some progress anyways. Let's see what else is.
Yeah, John's been adding a ton of great issues. John G. Shadow Spawn. So if you haven't followed along in there, I've given a ton of feedback, ton of sort of back and forth between us two. I think the biggest thing that changed, I think, in the last 6 months, since we kind of initially kicked off what I'm calling, I guess, V2 of this whole parsargs implementation, is just, I think, and to maybe summarize it here, I think John, something shifted between the way it was spec'd originally and the way that we're expecting flags to return now. I'm not sure if either of you read through some of these discussions, but I think John misinterpreted kind of I think the intent of always setting Boolean values within flags, which was previously called args, as if those were intended as like a argument type, almost like a flag. It was actually supposed to be the existence of the flag. So originally, values was not supposed to be like options with values, and the flags returned would not just be like only Boolean values. They weren't supposed to be like two different types of option types. There wasn't, it was that one return value was supposed to be just the existence of that flag, and the other was supposed to be like any values that would have been set. And because of that, what's happening is like we're now moving options from one set to another, sometimes with or without the with value option. And so I can't look at a single return value to check the existence of a flag or not, like consistently. So anyways, I've given that feedback, and I think we have to like change. There's got to be some work done there.
When you the flags you're talking about, where like we're just checking for their existence, are those the short options, or can they be anything?
Anything, yeah. So the idea with shorts, like even in their initial, I think, proposal was that they would just be aliases. So like a short is no different than a flag in my opinion. Like it's just a single character named flag, and the only association, like the only way to map that then so it doesn't dedupe, is to then say it's an alias, or it's a short, right? A short for a different value, or a different flag, sorry. Right.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah.
Yeah, I actually realized that I'm behind on these discussions. I just realized that I didn't have notifications on for this repo, so turn them on.
There's a lot of reading, by the way. A lot went on in the last like week. I finally got some time to play catch up here, and even like John's even added some more responses here. So
Okay, good to know. I'll try and find some time this weekend to get caught up on some of this stuff. I still do want to work on the strict implementation as well.
so that's okay. So
I
the
see
fact that
it.
you're yeah, so there's a whole thread on strict, and so yeah. I think it was a last minute add when I first created the repo to add it into the spec. Just said, I think we had a call and we were like, hey, like we should have a strict mode. And then that would kind of like, everybody would be happy, because the people that don't want this to ever fail, it won't fail by default. And then people that want this to throw, that makes sense. Where I'm concerned about implementing a strict is just like, what do we consider to be a like throwable condition? Like what's an error case really? Yeah, especially because we are discussing about in one of those other threads, other than the strict thread, the default parsing of like foo equal bar, like if we desugar that to be the same as with value foo, pretty much, that then is there really, then it kind of like introduces, I don't know, like with value then becomes less of like a less valuable in my opinion. Like I think I even said as much in my feedback to that idea, because with strict, if you have strict mode, the only way that you would know that about a flag's existence is by setting with value. And so like that's the only way that those two things could work together to actually throw an error, in my opinion. Like that's the only way that you would, like that would happen, right? Like we've been able to see that there's extra arguments that were passed that aren't listed in with value, and so we must throw. Like that's the condition that I imagined would be possible. But if we default parse out foo equal bar and make that assumption that we can do that, then it kind of throws strict mode out the window, I think. So.
Okay, I'm definitely gonna have to get caught up on that discussion.
Yeah.
We do throw a couple times right now, but I guess they're more like around, like if you pass in options that aren't an object, we throw.
Yeah, they're wrong. They're we like short options as well. We just throw for no reason, just because it's not implemented yet.
Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll have to read up on that to see kind of what you have been talking about. What else needs to? We did create a milestone here, I guess, for what we need to do to get this merged into Node. Yeah, so the things we have on that list right now are support for short options, establish an error message approach, and then the strict mode thing.
Yeah, so if we feel like we should have some goals really set instead, because I don't think we had that. Like, I don't know. I feel like a goal should be potentially, I don't know. Like I'm actually the more, and again, I know probably both of you have to follow up on some of this conversation, but like I'm almost in favor of not throwing ever and not having a strict mode right now. And that almost feels like me to be a goal that we should have.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with that, like philosophically. I just, yeah, I do need to, I guess, get caught up on the discussion there.
Because it's kind of like the thing that I harken back to is like the bring your own validation kind of concept I originally pitched, like quote unquote bring your own validation. Like we don't want to have to do any like type coercion. We don't have to do any like type checking. We don't have to do any kind of like inference. We don't want that kind of stuff. We want to give you like a minimal config, maximum value, like kind of feature set here, that like let you quickly scaffold a CLI tool, or let you then utilize the return values to do something more complex, like okay, aliasing, or like building like a yards or commander on top of this like really nice primitive set of functionality. So I think shorts are great. I think, and the way that we've kind of defined those, I think works for me now. I'm on board with that. I had like a knee-jerk reaction the last time we talked about it because I was just like catching up. But I think I'm on board with like kind of like what was set out there. But yeah, definitely like the flags key name change. I think directly, I didn't understand why it was being changed before. So I was kind of like, okay, that's totally fine. And I know Ben brought it up in our last call, like, oh, is that okay? Are we all +1 for like the flags name change? And then everybody was like, yeah. But I didn't really realize that the reason why it got changed was because certain values were going to start to be omitted from that set, from that array. So like, and only exist in the values returned object. So
Right. I think we split, like, or was it args, wasn't it, or something? We split into flags and values.
yeah, so it was actually args and values.
Okay.
And so now it's flags and values. But the reason, but the thing is, like, values was supposed to be like the be all and end all, like for if you want to get a value out of a flag, out of like an option. There was no like two different types. The args array, or sorry, the args object would always have a reference to the option or argument, if we were able to parse it, or if we knew it was expected, right? So similar to like you trying to write a strict implementation, you could use that object knowing that something was supposed to be provided to you and seeing that the Boolean was actually false, right? So the Boolean associated with the key was actually the existence of that thing. So it would always be true if we for each one of those keys that we parsed, except when you provide when you define that you expected a certain argument in the with value option, and then that wasn't passed to the program, right? And then that would be false, and so that would give you the ability to essentially check for missing, flags that you expected, and then you could throw on that, or you could throw separately as well to have, like, I have an example in one of these threads where I show you how you could throw on like a strict mode where like you have known options, and if you see anything but that in that parsed out field, then you would then you could throw yourself, right? You can just do your own kind of like strict mode there. Yeah, again, like I think there was like just a misunderstanding there by John, and then he said as much pretty much, and that he's okay with going back to the original intent, which might mean that we want to change the name back to args. But I don't know. I'm okay with keeping it as flags for now, but so long as like we don't lose so long as we don't lose like that understanding of like the seen or existed, like existence, because otherwise I have to go looking at two different objects to actually figure out if a flag was passed. I have to check both flags and or values to see if there was like a flag was, and in terms of quickly scaffolding a program, like all I want is like a force flag, right? Like, or something like that. Half the time you only want one or two like actual arguments to a CLI program, and in those quick prototyping cases. And like I feel like if I have to check two different places for existence, it's not going to be fun.
Yeah, I see what you mean. This could be like error prone too if people don't really know that they're supposed to check in both places or whatever. Yeah, I'm kind of in favor of there being one. Like you should get one list of all of the options.
Well, it's just like one is like meant for like existence, and the other is meant for like if there was a value associated with that flag, then it's that the value is returned in that other set. Go ahead, Roy.
Now, if I recall this correctly, but it's been a while now, but I think these two things might be tied to original pushbacks in the original PR that Chris opened long ago, right? That didn't land first time we tried. So I believe there was some pushback with regards to flags. To a specific case where you just define a flag equals false, and how could you tell that without extra configs? If I recall correctly, I might be completely mistaking things here. But I also strict mode, I believe it was kind of an answer to the fact that some of the folks there really wanted it to be more strict and to throw. So this was kind of like people were really divided on it. Like some people would be really strong thinking that this should throw, and on the other camp you had like people that really didn't want to throw like at all, wouldn't accept it. So I think it's kind of a compromise having a strict mode. So I think there is value in having it.
That's a good point. Like I guess we should maybe revisit. I mean, something else to read up on, I guess, is go revisit that issue. Because it was a little while ago. I don't remember all the sort of requested changes.
Yeah, so I do remember like the reason why I came up with this like change is because I like read through thoroughly the feedback, and we like I tried to thread essentially the needle of everybody's wants and needs there. That like definitely, I think you're right, Roy, that like some people wanted to throw, but I think it was because it was ambiguous whether it should or shouldn't be. If we say explicitly we don't want to throw, like I think that's fine. And the reason is because like, if you imagine, I don't know, like I'm trying to think of other operations that are similar that like, I'm trying to think of prior art in core right now of something that does something similar and like parses a string and then would throws on some set of conditions. Like right now we have no conditions at all. Like even with value is not like a strict contract to throw. It's like, it's an expectation that this thing might have a value, really. Like that it's saying that this thing might actually be there and might have a value. You're not saying that we expect it to be there and we expect to have a value. So it's like making, I think it's going a step too far to assume that we should throw when we see things we weren't explicitly like expecting to see. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that kind of makes sense. Sounds familiar. I forgot that you were the one that yeah did go through all that feedback and write up this new proposal. It's been a
It took me
while.
like, yeah, it's been like, it was like a fever dream of like 2 or 3 nights like of just reading through. So I felt really bad. Like Chris said, we spent so much time on it, and then it kind of, you know, it seemed like it was coming to an end. And there was obviously, you know, a lot of energy at the time that we had put into it, and we wanted to like circle back on this and find a way to make it happen. And it seemed like separating out, again, like the eureka moment for me was separating out like the actual values from the like the actual value of um the options versus the existence of them was kind of like the eureka moment for me, like putting them into these like 3 different return values, and then saying that we don't, and then also like being a staunch advocate for saying we don't try to coerce anything. So like, I think Roy mentioned that like foo equal false or something. Like one of the biggest pieces of feedback was like, okay, well, do we, because what was happening before was like some type coercion where we would actually set a Boolean for flags, and people, I think the original implementation would take like false and actually return a Boolean, like a proper, like, yeah, Boolean instead of string. So now we say, no, we don't do that at all. We don't deal with any types of objects except strings. Like all we're going to return is a string, no matter what, string all the way down. So I feel like saying that like is going to, that as a goal is going to appease a lot of people, because it's like, okay, well, you're doing just string manipulation. There's no way for you, like, there's no way for us to like, I don't know, make the wrong choice here, because we're just going to return you back like what we sliced up, right? Like, I don't know.
Right, yeah, which kind of makes sense in the context of like strict mode. Then like, what would the error be? You know, if we're just parsing the string and returning using strings.
Exactly, like the error would, because I'm concerned, like, what's the error that we saw, like, because it's like an index of like values, or like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I do like the idea of like, I mean, realistically, you're probably going to build your own validation where you maybe would turn something like the string false into a Boolean false and check, you know, for options that are maybe mutually exclusive or an option that needs a value that wasn't provided. So maybe just leaving that all kind of up to the user is kind of the way to go. Okay, well, yeah, I'm definitely, I had not seen the flurry of discussion this week, so I'll definitely got some reading to do this weekend. I'll definitely do that before I try and implement anything like the strict mode, which, yeah, I think we maybe, I'll read the issue and I don't know if it needs to be discussed further. If it does, we can always talk about it in the next meeting.
Yeah, I'm trying to find, like, I have a bunch of comments and examples in some of these threads now. just trying to find the one where I explicitly had an example for throwing. Might have not actually provided it. Okay, I'll send it to you separately.
Sure. Yeah, I'm just looking at the strict thread right now. Excuse me. Okay. Is there anything else we want to talk about here on the call today? Or I mean, yeah, it sounds like, for my part, anyways, I need to get caught up on these discussions. Anyone have anything else they want to talk about?
No, just got to get this over the finish line. I should have wrote the initial implementation and just I just never had time at that point in time. So I know that would have helped with, I think, a lot of the confusion is right now we have the code is half done. So like you're seeing some people are trying it out and oh, wait a second, this actually doesn't align with even what the spec is saying right now, right? So
right. Yeah, it would be good to get the initial implementation finished. I know there's some work we want to do around adding a ton of tests and stuff too. But it'd be good to have a working implementation just so people can try it out first, and then we can follow it up with testing.
See what I can do this weekend as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to spend some time on this weekend as well. So I'll start by reading all these issues and then see if there's something that I can work on.
Because I would deal with your strict mode and I'm trying to, let me look back at the proposal for strict. So Boolean on whether or not to throw an error when unknown args are encountered. So the unknown errors are args are encountered would be when something is defined in multiples or with value. Or could it also be shorts as well?
Yeah.
So all three. If I define anything in any one of those three, then that becomes the list that the exempt list or something. I don't know what you call it.
The allow list. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I do see that kind of being in the comment here about being able to know when an unknown argument is passed and then display help text or an error or something. But yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to get caught up on. There's a much more discussion after that. So
yeah, well, just I think the example of how would you do that without a strict mode would be literally you define the known, it's a one-liner, you define the array of known values in a variable, and then you pass that, and then you check if there's anything that isn't that set passed back in the flags object,
right.
So that's a quick immediate we could have that as one of the default examples of how to use this if you want strictness.
Right.
You write these 2 lines of code, and it's okay, you can throw an error when you're finding flags that you don't expect, right?
Right. Yeah, that does make sense. I mean, I do kind of like the idea of leaving a lot of that up to the user, because we're not going to get it right in a way that's going to please everyone.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm going to hopefully get caught up on this weekend, and if there's some work that I think I can do there, we'll do that. Maybe I'll post on Slack or something before taking anything on, just to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Yeah. I don't think I'll get to anything until maybe Sunday. We'll see how much time I get. So if you're working today or tomorrow, put something in Slack. I will too if I dive in, just so we're not jumping on each other's toes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think I might have time tomorrow to work on this. We'll see how far I get through all the reading.
Yeah, apologies. I definitely was making up for lost time. So you've got like a book to read there. So
I mean, it's good to. I think it's good to sort out all these issues now, right? Like better now than later, and we don't have a ton of code that we need to like throw away or anything. So
yeah, one of the sticking points you'll see is also like whether or not we should be passing back undefined versus an empty string. So it's in the cases where let's say dash dash foo equals and then no this like value suffixing or like ending it, what gets returned there. And like originally I thought we were gonna pass back undefined in those cases, but then also like what would you do with like dash dash foo without the equal sign? Is that the same thing? And then if you did dash dash foo equals and then like actual like parens, not parens, but like an empty string, and then those two actually in shell like desugar to the same thing anyway. So I was just like, okay, well, are these all then just empty strings? Should we always just return an empty string for all three of those cases? Jordan had some like thoughts. He wanted undefined. John G like was okay, I think, with like empty strings for all three of those cases. So
yeah, I'm trying to think about what if you actually wanted to pass the empty string as an argument, like dash
you
dash
just like
equals.
escape it. You escape it. Yeah. So you do like backslash quote backslash quote.
Okay. I mean, that seems like a pretty niche edge case, but I guess you never know. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, it sounds like we got a bit of a plan at the moment anyways. Anyone have anything else they want to talk about parse args or anything else? No? Yeah, nothing for me either. All right,
Have
well.
you tried out overheads?
Yeah,
Have you tried
sure.
overheads? Yeah.
Yeah, starting to roll NPM out in a bunch of projects, including ones that use overrides, and so far so good.
Okay, that's good to hear.
I gave Luke some other feedback. So yeah, I'm not sure if he shared that with you, but
no, I didn't get that. Yeah.
all right. I mean, nothing too important that we need to talk about now, but yeah, maybe we can talk on Slack or Twitter or something later.
Cool.
All right. Well, yeah, we'll make it a short meeting today. Thanks for joining, and I will talk to you guys later.